In video number 10, you saw completing the square with one variable. So now this is how it's going to affect it if there's two variables, and this will be how we need to write the equation of the circle given our original statement. So here's the original statement of what it's going to look like. If you notice, there's x squareds and y squareds, there's an x, a y, and a constant. So what's going to happen is that we need to separate the two variables on the left side of the equation. So that means I'm going to set it up like I did right now. So I take the x's and I put them together. I take the y's and I put them together and leave a little space here because remember that's where that new c value is going to go. Then we need to move the constants to the right side of the equation. So my -7 I've got to move over. So that's going to become a +7 on the other side. And we need to do all that before we find out what those new c values are going to be. So I'm going to call this my c1. So whatever I add onto one side I have to add to the other. And the c for the y, I'm going to call that c2, just so we can keep them separate. So when we label it, you'll see where those numbers are going to go, and I'll color code it as well. Once those are all on there, then we can factor both of these sets of our variables to find out what our x value will be for our circle or the y value will be for the circle, and that'll be for the center. And then this other side will give us what the radius of our circle is going to be. Remember, to find the c value, we always take the b divided by 2 and square it. And that's for when we have our equation ax squared plus bx plus c. So we always take the middle divided by 2 and square it, and that will give us what our c value should be so we can have a perfect square trinomial. So on this first one, let's set it up. We need to take the b value, so that's our 4, divided by 2 and square it. When I divide it by 2, we get 2. When we square it, we get 4. So both of my C1 numbers need to be 4. Now remember, I say both of them because if it's on one side of the equation, we have to add it to the other as well. Do not forget that other side of your equation. For the C2, we will have our -10 divided by 2 and square it. So that gives us a -5 squared is a 25. So my C2 is going to be a 25 on both sides. So now what the goal is we need to factor both of these different sets and then combine our like terms on the other side of our equation. And this is the way I'm always going to set it up. So for the pink part, for our x's, we have our x needs to go here. Remember, this middle sign will always be the signs of both of them. And then the square root of this last number, so the square root of 4 is 2. So 2 will be both of these values. That means that this is x plus 2 times the quantity squared. So there's our first set of factors. Next is my purple for the y's. So it's y's for both of them. The middle sign will always be both of the factors. And then we take the square root of this last number. So that will be a 5, and that will be both of our factors. So we'll have y minus 5 quantity squared. For the other side of our equation, we need to combine these parts together. So 25 plus 4 is 29, plus 7 more gives us a 36. And then that just carries down. So here's our equation of our circle. Now remember, for the center, you always have to use the opposite signs of your h and k. So if we have a +2 here, it's going to be a -2 for our x. If we have a -5 in our parentheses here, it will be a +5 for the y value. And then for the radius, we need to take the square root of our 36, which gives us a 6. So our radius will be a 6 for our circle, and the center is at -2, 5. Now, the big difference between two variables and one is you really do need to group them separately. That's the part that can get a little challenging. So if you want to use colored pencils to group it by color as well, that'll keep it a little clearer. So all of this comes down to our factor of x plus 2 squared, and then all of our y's come down to y minus 5 squared. So it makes it a little bit easier to see where those numbers are coming from. Plus this other side, you should have one of each of those numbers of our new c value. So do not forget that. Otherwise your radius might be off. So if their center is correct but the radius is wrong, it's probably because you forgot to add that to the other side. So starting off at number 2, remember we need to group all of our x's together. And then we need to group all of our y's together. And we need to move this extra c value to the other side, our constant. So that would become a +119. Now don't forget about the blank spaces. So we have the first c value we have to make sure we include on both sides. You also have the second c value you need to add on both sides. Now the setup is very important, so to make sure that you understand that once you find that first number, you put it on the other side. Once you find the second C value, you have to put that on the other side. If you're not practicing setting this up, a lot of times that's why you would miss adding it to the other side of our equal sign. Okay, so what I want you to do next is just the pink part of this. I want you to figure out what is your C1 value going to be. What you should have calculated is that your C1 value is going to be a positive 4. Now I want you to do it again for the C2 value. And you should have found that the C2 value is going to be a 9. So now we need to factor both of our pieces, so x's and y's, and then combine your like terms on the right side. All right, so what I want you to do is we are going to find our factors of the pink. So remember, we take the square root of our C value, our new C value that we found, and that is a 2. So I know those are both 2's. The sign, remember, comes from the middle, so it's both to be minus. So this would be x minus 2 quantity squared. Now for the y's, same thing. Take the square root of our C value, so that would be a 3. And then the sign comes from the middle, so those are both minuses. When we put that together, we would have y minus 3 quantity squared. So what I want you to do next, since we haven't done one of these yet, is I want you to find what the other side, your constant on the right side, is going to be, and find what the radius of that number will be. Your number on the other side, when you add all those together, so 119 plus 4 plus 9 should be 132. And then for the radius, you have to take the square root of 132, and right, it's not a perfect square. So what it comes out to be is 11.49 would be our radius. So lastly, we need to fill in what is the center from our circle, and I want you to fill that one out as well based on our equation over here. Okay, so it should be the opposite of your minus 2 from your x, and that would be a positive 2. Let's do that in pink. And then it should be the opposite of our minus 3, so it should be a positive 3 for our y value. So 2, 3 is your center. First off, before we start number 3, is make the changes that I just did right here on your notes. So this should be 16x, not the 8x, and this should be 2y, not 1y. So make sure you change those, otherwise our numbers will not come out very nicely at the end. So just like we did before, we need to separate out our x's. Let's move those in front and separate out your y's, and also move this to the other side. So go ahead, push pause if you need to, but then copy those down. Next, we need to find our C1 values, and we need to find the C2 values. So by now you should be able to fill those out pretty quickly yourself. So the b divided by 2 is 8. So 8 squared gives me a 64. So my 64 are both my C1 values. Next is my purple, so my y. So my y value is, or my b value is 2. Divided by 2 is 1. Squared gives us still a 1. So my C2 number is a 1. Next, we need to factor both halves of our equation. Plus, we need to combine our like terms on the left, or the right side of your equation. So let's go ahead and set all these up. For the factors of our pink, we know we have our x and x. The square root of our C value is going to be an 8, and our sign is going to be our positive. So this would be x plus 8 quantity squared. Then for our y values, the square root of 1 is still 1. We still have our y's there in the front. The sign is going to be our positive still, so this would be y plus 1 quantity squared. We still have our plus. When we combine this right-hand side, negative 61 plus 64 is only a positive 3, and then plus 1 more would be a positive 4. So there's your equation of your circle. Then we want to label what is the center and what is the radius. So your center is going to be opposite of plus 8, so that would be a negative 8. And the opposite of plus 1, so it'd be a negative 1 for the center. Then for your radius, remember you have to take this number and take the square root of it, and we get a 2, so the radius would be 2.